17 seconds.
16.
15 seconds.
14.
13 seconds.
12.
11.
10 seconds.
9.
8. 7. 6.
6 what?
Copy.
5 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
So, hi folks, and welcome back to the Scotch Tracker. Today joining me is John Jackson Miller. He's a New York Times best-selling author and novelist of Star Trek books. Thank you very much for joining the show today and coming on, John.
That's glad to be here, and that's a great opening. I like that. That's wonderful.
Thanks.
Glad to be on the Scotch Tracker, especially this week. We're here in Wisconsin. We're having the Ryder Cup, so golf has come to Wisconsin. Not that it isn't always here, but this is the big international event. It's just about an hour from me, so I dropped by over there and took the tour yesterday.
Oh, cool. So I thought we could discuss rogue elements of your latest Star Trek novel.
Sure.
What would you say were the main inspirations on the writing of the book?
Well, obviously, the Star Trek Picard series, and Santiago Cabrera's your performance as not just Rios, but also all of the holographic entities that he plays in there. Emil and Ian and Enoch and Emmett and Mr. Hospitality. Those are the names of the 5 that we know of so far, anyway. So that's obviously the start. But then, I wanted to do a story which was, because it is set 9 years before, 8 or 9 years before the Picard show. It's right when Rios has been, removed from Starfleet, and he's, having to go on his own. I wanted to show what it would be like for someone in that universe to start business as a trader, as somebody who is traveling, carrying goods from place to place, and all of those things inspire other questions of their own, such as, in a world with a replicator, why do you need to carry things? Well, we kind of get into that. The places that he's operating are abandoned by basically everybody, because the Romulan star has gone its way, and so the Romulan neutral zone and everything is in collapse, and the Federation, it was shown, had already sort of retreated from most of its responsibilities in that region, following the thing that we see happening on Mars in the TV show. And so I wanted to do something where it's not kind of the Wild West that they're in, but it is definitely a region where there is no easy access to law and order, and somebody from Starfleet to somebody. Or get him out of a jam, and he wouldn't accept their help anyway, at least at the beginning of the book, because of what he's been through. So we have that, and then there's other inspirations. There are other episodes of the TV show and movies as well. Each bring characters or whole species, in one case, into the book. We have not revealed in our book copy or in our promotional copy or in our promotions, we haven't revealed the villain of the book. We don't reveal the some of the other surprise characters that show up in the book, because we want people to enjoy them on their own, but enjoy the surprises. But we have we've made clear, because it's on the inside front cover of the book, for example, that he buys the ship from the Ioshians, and that is the race of people on Sigma Iosha 2 who are their lives are crafted and modeled around this book that is a book about Earth in Chicago in the 1920s, the Prohibition era, and everything looks like the TV show The Untouchables, because it was all shot where The Untouchables was shot anyway, with all the costumes and everything else, because it was all in the Desilu lot. But what I wanted to do was actually explore them a bit more. What might they be like 125 years later? And also to use them as kind of a springboard for another theme in this book, which is tying into that idea of physical things. The idea about books. The idea that even though things can be digitized, there can be reasons that physical books would still be appealing to people. And in fact, there are some physical books in this particular book that are key to solving some various mysteries. And we get into the kinds of things like that people prize certain articles that even if you could replicate them, they wouldn't be quite the same. The emotional attachments that people have to things are tied to the physical being, to the knowing that this exact item was present at this point in my life or at this point in someone's history. And that there are a lot of ways to get at it, including, we have a character that collects exotic things that are, were made erroneously in some way, shape, or form, or that are damaged in some way. I discovered one of these just this last week. We were packing up copies of books after a convention in Connecticut. And as I was working to pack up my copies of Star Trek Prey, I discovered that this one book, inside, it is another novel by some other author, Carl Hiaasen, Nature Girl, which is not even from the same publishing company. But every page is from that other book. And it is because it was an error in the bindery. And of course, these things happen where sometimes you'll get the same chapter over and over again, or something like that. This is one of the first times I've ever seen an entire book be somebody else's book, and such a very different one. And I wonder if there's a copy of Carl Hiaasen's book out there somewhere that has my Star Trek novel in it, because clearly something has happened. And so, even though I have countless copies of my own books on my shelves here, and I have a copy of Star Trek Prey that is in better condition, I can say that I will never let go of this copy of this book because it is so weird
and so unique.
Yes.
I saw you posted about that on Facebook, and I thought, wow, that's amazing.
It is a very strange thing. Yeah, there are people who just collect oddball things like that. So when I find them, I don't let go of them.
Yeah. We've got a comment coming in saying they love Glake. I think, is that the Nodskin? I was thinking. Oh
yes. Glake is Glake, yes. particularly in the audiobook. He only says one word when we meet him, and he is in a sense, he's very much like a character in the old Addams Family TV show, the big character Lurch, who is always saying, "You rang." The audiobook, which is wonderful, which is by Robert Petkoff, is just delightful, and the way that he does the voice in there, and all the voices in there are just always. It's a treat for me to listen to these whenever I have the chance.
Cool. Regarding the oceans, I wondered like how the idea of using them came about, and like whether the idea that they were considered for appearing in DS9 before like Trials and Tribulations was written was like an influence on them coming back in your novel or not?
Not that fact. That's actually the first time I've heard that. But that would have been interesting. But the idea of using the Iosians, I was already interested in them and certainly aware of them because the episode in which the Iosians appear is a piece of the action that aired the exact day I was born. It was I was about 2 hours old, 3 hours old when the episode came on NBC. So I didn't get to see it. I was a little bit busy at the time, I assume, or I was just not informed about it being on. So right there, I had that connection. Also, I over the years it's been a favorite episode. Vic Tayback, who later on stars in a sitcom called Alice that lasts almost 9 years, I think. Is in it, it's just we have all these episodes of the original series that are the way they are because they don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of money to keep inventing new alien sets and alien costumes every week. And so, we have just a whole lot of places that look like Earth, or they look like Earth at different times in history. And so, they come up with the ideas about parallel development and things like that to sort of paper over that. And that's all fine. But I think some of these concepts, trying to take them a step further, to take them more seriously, you could ask yourself, well, how would they have reacted if they had gotten a different book? Why is it that their world, and the novel gets into this, their world looks like some parts of Prohibition era Chicago, but there's also a lot of other parts of that lifestyle that are not represented in the episode or in the book. And of course, the reason is that it was the 1960s, and NBC had what they called a standards and practices division that prevented any television program from being too adult or showing anything too seamy. And so, most of what we see is basically the mobsters going around to shoot at each other, and we don't really have a sense too much of what the actual crimes they're involved with are. And as the book explains, Prohibition was created by the 18th Amendment to the American Constitution, illegalizing the sale and manufacture of alcohol. And there was probably no such thing on Iosha. And even if there was, there's no evidence that drinking alcohol would have any effect on them. So I kind of took that and went forward with it and said, okay, there's just a bunch of peculiar things about this particular species here. And, I wanted to see which way I could go with it.
Mm-hmm. Before reading the book, I sat on another YouTube channel on a review of a piece of the action, and watching the episode again, it felt like the species I felt could have been more flashed out, and because I kept thinking for all these things there must be some place to manufacture the guns and the chairs and all the rest of it. It's I thought your book did a really, really good job of fleshing out the species, and I was really pleased to read it from that perspective.
Well, cool. They weren't doing a TV miniseries back then. It was a 48-minute episode, and so they had to try to get it all in from start to finish, and still have time for learning card games like Fizbin.
Yeah.
So there was only so much they were going to be able to do. So a lot of the stuff in Star Trek is already kind of in between the panels of the comic book. It's in between the scenes. It's behind the scenes. You have to assume that there were photographs in the book of what automobiles look like, of what fashion looked like, of what the guns look like, and how they functioned. And one of the moments in the book is where Rios gets in one of their trucks, and it's clear that the operating systems are not the same as what he remembers. The levers and the pedals, the gear shift, it's all in the wrong place. And it's presumed that Well, they just didn't know, or one would assume that later on they would get more books about how to actually design things that look like they fit, if that was what they were looking for, but they didn't have them yet.
So you mentioned no problem. You mentioned comics. So like before today's interview, I was reading like he actually like wrote comics.
Yes.
Originally, like to do with Star Wars. I wondered, like, if any of you, like, your experience writing Star Wars, sort of was influential in writing Rogue Elements.
A couple of things. I did a novel called A New Dawn, and one of the interim titles for A New Dawn was actually Rogue Elements. So I ended up putting it to use. But the New Dawn novel was a tie-in with the Rebels TV series, and it was about the main character Kanan, who was a Jedi student who survived the massacre. And so when we meet him, he's grown, and he's traipsing about, flying. Actually, he's flying demolition demolition materials back and forth on a route on a mining planet, and he has sort of a similar predicament to Rios in Picard at this point, because he also did not know why his world had come to an end, why his career had come to an end. He did not know, the bad thing that happens in Picard on Rios's ship, the Ibn Majid, is equivalent, I think, in a way to the bad thing that had happened to Kanan in A New Dawn. He just responds to it much differently, and the catalyst for getting Kanan back involved in the fight is the character of Hera from the TV series. We have no such person like that in Rogue Elements. We do have Ledger, who is the Ioshan bookkeeper, who is sort of exiled to his ship, but she has no desire to be anywhere around the ship any longer than she has to be. There's no particular mission that she needs a quality freighter pilot or a Jedi for. She's just all about the money. So it allowed me to take start from sort of a similar place, but go in a different direction.
Cool. I wondered if there's a reason why you decided to set the book when you did, rather than like earlier in Rio's history, so just during his youth, or even aboard the Ibn Majid.
The problem with doing it during his youth is that brings me into the realm of establishing things that might have to be overwritten. Even though I'm working with Kirsten Beyer, who is the co-creator of the series, I would assume that they reserve the right to at any time expand the family of Rios, and I would assume that there are other family members that he has out there, and so it would be irresponsible for me as a tie-in writer to declare that he is an only child, for example, or an orphan, for example. I can't do that. I shouldn't be doing that. The Ibn Majid, every so often someone will remark that they wish they had seen more about that ship, or more of what went on that ship, or just a traditional Starfleet sort of a story. My response to that is there's enough traditional Starfleet stories set on ships to begin with. We don't necessarily need one with Rios. But further, that story, what we know about Ibn Majid, we already know all we need to know about it, which is how things ended. We already need to know all we need to know about it, because we know its role in Rios's life collapsing. And I did bring in a character who was familiar with a couple of characters who were familiar with that time. Ibn Majid is not absent from the book, but I I wanted to write an upbeat book anyway, because of the the pandemic that I was working in at the time, and I knew that people would be still looking for an escapist novel by the time we got to the summer of 2021, and sort of my feeling was, there's no way that an Ibn Majid novel doesn't end badly, doesn't end on a downer. Because even if I bring it right up to the doorstep of the very bad day is sitting there, and it's like trying to give Darth Vader a happy ending, a couple of weeks before Revenge of the Sith. It just doesn't work. That there's a shadow hanging over everything, and while we do know what Rios's future looks like to a degree, in Picard, it is not something that's necessarily bad. It's obviously it's an improvement in his life. So that's the way I went. That's why I went that direction. I just kind of felt like all that I would be doing if I was doing something, for his early life or on the ship, would just be adding what they would call lore. Well, now we know the name of the security. We do get a security officer, but we would know the name of the doctor on the ship, and we would know the name of the helmspeople, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it wouldn't necessarily have much bearing on who he is. He is who he is because of how he copes with what happened on Ibn Majid.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's really interesting. That you therefore tackle the aftermath of that in a way. How long? I was wondering, how long did the book take to write? Would you say in total?
I was asked to write it in the summer of 2020. I had a plot together around this time of year, September or October, and I began writing really heavy duty in late October, November, December. So it was about 3 months of just daily writing. And, I moved to a different spot in the house to write so that I could have the illusion of actual travel, since I hadn't gotten to travel all year. And it also, felt like I had exiled myself from the office the same way that Rios had been exiled from Starfleet.
A question I noted down was it fun to write the colourful Ioshan dialogue?
Oh yeah, I had to get I called upon several encyclopedia pages of expressions. I combined them all into one giant file and would just sort of pour down the list to find something that I really liked. And so, and there are these expressions, most of them are ones that I've heard in old movies as well. And I pulled some more from other old movies, just for the right time to see and hear them. And there are phrases that, play one way then that play differently now. Somebody in the 20s might say murder if something's really interesting or really cool or really whatever. And people will say murder. What's going on here? And so you have that, and in a sense, it was like going into a different language or a different dialect. When I was writing, the previous novel, Star Trek Discovery Die Standing. We had Finnegan, the Irish character, and so I had my nice, encyclopedia of Irish colloquialisms, and we have the engineer Ian in this book, and the trick is I don't have to be exact with anything that any of those characters say, the holographic characters say, because they're not actually from Scotland or the United States or Ireland, or
holograms.
They're his vision of what these accents sound like, because it comes from the whole self-scan thing. So everything is kind of at a remove. It's not that this is a genuine Scottish engineer. It is we probably had Rios doing a fake Scots accent when he was programming the device, and that's where it came from. But yeah, it is an amusing thing to work with. That he has these other characters, and it took a while to figure out what their names were, and
sorry, folks, we've lost John. I was enjoying that conversation. Hopefully he'll be back quite soon. He was saying at the start of the discussion that his internet is sort of dropping in and out today. I was thinking, I think Star Trek Picard will be back in February, I think, in next year. It's certainly next year. I think it's February. So looking forward to that. And also Prodigy and Discovery starting up before then. Prodigy season 1 and Discovery season 4, yeah. I'll bring John back onto the screen if he comes up again. Ah, he's back.
Very sorry about that.
So, sorry we lost you.
No, you didn't lose me. It's the internet here. I had been concerned at the beginning. They've been doing some work around here.
Oh, right. So, I don't remember the subject we were speaking about.
Oh, yeah, we were just talking about the holograms and the accents.
Yeah. Regarding that, I wondered, like, did you, like, in sort of writing their dialogue and stuff like that, I wondered, like, did you watch, like, their scenes, like, over and over again to try and, like, get the characterizations of the different holograms?
Oh, yeah. And so, Mr. Hospitality was the most difficult because we were trying to figure exactly what his accent was. And, I finally just said his accent is game show host. He's just very peppy and always happy and overly so. So he's on a whole lot of caffeine.
Cool. So I realised, like, there are quite a few alien species in this book that will be familiar to long-time fans of Star Trek, and I wondered, like, was that, like, deliberate? Did you feel like an obligation to include those to please fans? We talked about the oceans and like Nausicaan character and stuff like that.
I always try to use whatever species are available and logical to appear in a show. At 2399, 2390, 2391, when we are here actually, it's a lot easier because I kind of have the whole range of Star Trek, the original series, and Next Generation and DS9 species to draw from in the alpha and beta quadrants. I wouldn't put a delta quadrant species in there, but otherwise it's pretty much free. When I'm doing something like when I did Die Standing or the Enterprise War, which was my novel where Captain Pike was during the first season of Discovery. Well, that's a bit more difficult because, Romulans are right out. I mean, you can't have them at all at that point because they haven't been re-encountered yet. And obviously no mention of the Borg and no mention of any species that would not have been encountered until later. And, there are some that can kind of go either way because do we know when the first contact was with the Bajorans? Do we know when the first contact with the Cardassians was? I can't tell you off the top of my head when it was. I can tell you I'd have no business establishing it in a novel I have no business bringing them in. And you know, if I'm wrong, somebody would come in immediately and say, "Hey, look." And usually, somebody involved with the book itself would say it. One of the staffers at CBS or Simon and Schuster would catch it and say, "Yeah, they don't exist yet." But no, coming from Star Wars comics, I did the Knights of the Old Republic series, which is now available in a gigantic omnibus edition. It was very common for me to have just a menagerie of hundreds of different, kinds of characters passing through a storyline. And it was much easier to do because I had these wonderful artists who were able to just draw things. And all I had to say is just include a lot of different alien races, and they would go nuts.
Talking about like the holographic characters, I forgot that there was one question I forgot to ask you, because in the book it's sort of like Rios like gets drunk and stuff like that and doesn't remember like programming the computer. Like I wondered if you ever drafted like a version of the scene where you actually talk about him creating that and it's not just like as a
no. I always knew that it would be left to the reader's imagination because I didn't want the main character to know he had done it. And so that mystery comes about later. If I showed that moment, you'd know, and he might not know, but I'd rather have you and the reader, or him and the reader find out at the same time.
Cool. And also, you said like on social media and stuff, like there's some sort of code in like the section. Beginning of each section or something. Each section title of all of my books, I have a, I don't do it always, but I usually have some sort of a word play with the titles. Either they all start with the same letter, or they rhyme somehow, or and sometimes the title of one. I was going to use this Prey book to show as an example, but it's the wrong book inside. But yeah, there are in Prey, the word in the first title leads to the second, which leads to the third, which leads to the fourth. Here, I go a few different ways. There is I want to be very careful because I've got to preserve the surprises of the book. But readers will see that instead of section numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a group of symbols, and either symbols from astrology or alchemy, whichever you believe it is, that we basically scroll through that list, that line of symbols as the book goes, and it is connected to a mystery that he is trying to solve, so. You're just as confused about it as he is at the beginning. And then later, hopefully, the reader understands what it's there for. It's there because it is directly related to the grand mystery that he needs to solve. Cool. Because on social media, I noticed like David Mack was like going through, presenting these examples. Well, this is what it could be. Where are you going with this?
Well, no, and those are the ways that probably Rios would have tried to figure it out too. And as the reader will find out, it's a bit more complicated, and the scenes of how he figures things out are some of the more fun ones in the book.
I'm not sure if you want to talk about this comment.
Oh yeah, Rios turns into a reader. We're shown him reading frequently in the TV show, and we're shown that he reads philosophy. When he meets Picard, he says, I read one of your books. And it struck me that this might be something that I could tie into my theme that was developing about books, that perhaps he was not interested in philosophy before all these things happened, before the disaster in his life. You know, there must be a reason he has turned to these books. Some of them are quite, dense and difficult to read. What is he looking for? Well, in the show, we realize what he's looking for. He's looking for answers to what happened to him, this bad thing in Starfleet. But I thought that, what I could do is show who he was before he was a reader, and then show how he gets the opportunity to develop a library, how he gets the opportunity to begin reading, and then the role that books play in his life. Because again, they don't solve everything for him, but they do have a way of occupying him, and this is good for somebody who very. This is good for somebody like Rios, who has substance abuse issues that we see in the book. Being occupied, having his time occupied with something, is not necessarily a bad thing. So, we do have the books are. When I set out to write a book, I don't normally say, all right, the theme of this book will be books and redemption and all these other things. I don't write that way. I'm sure there are workshops that tell people how to do that and start that way. But usually these things come about as I'm writing the actual manuscript, and things sort of gel and form together and interlock as if in a puzzle.
Cool. I think that's really interesting. I was just thinking as well, like the way that the books come onto the ship, the La Serena, I found like really funny.
Oh yeah. I had a great experience, just imagining some of these moments, and if they ever get around to animating the books, we've got the audiobooks, but and they're delightful. But if they ever get around to animating the books, there are several scenes on La Serena that I would love to see.
Regarding basically like early in this book in Rogue Elements, I thought it was like really a cool idea, like that you've got like a chapter supposedly written by Whalen,
yes,
from The Big Goodbye in the Next Generation. I wondered like where that idea came from, and basically like if you've written any other books that sort of do something similar where it's like
not like
changing
this,
like narrative style.
Not quite like this. Although occasionally in a comic I would have something where we would shift to something from a history text or something like that, and then we would come back. But I think the idea here in the very beginning, I was looking for a way to make Picard's book part of this. Because again, it is something we hear Rios talk about, that he read Picard's book. We don't know what he thinks of it. We don't know, whether the book was any good. But I thought, well, in the very beginning, I thought, well, perhaps Picard's book, if we go all the way through it from beginning to end, maybe it has some sort of, provides some sort of clue or some sort of impetus that will help Rios solve a problem. And then I said, well, no, maybe instead, since this would have to be quite an old book by this point, let's put some other old books in here. And, let's, it particularly gave me the chance to do the talk about the Iosians without it having to come through exposition, without it having to come from somewhere else. By being in that excerpt, we're hearing it conversationally from the author. And because we repeat that dynamic that we do, because we repeat this device again and again, and in fact, it appears exactly once in each section, always as the third chapter. So we've made it clear that this is not something we're going to dump into at random times in the book. It becomes part of the structure of the book. It's sort of like, we see the first the first 2 chapters of each section are kind of like the part of the episode that's before the credits, and then this excerpt part, it's the first scene after the credits, and then we go back into the show. Is kind of how the way I look at it. So it's I think that it serves a purpose, and it's something where we did manage to get Picard in this book a bunch of times, considering that this is the main characters have not met yet. He is present in the book.
And would that be like a mandate from the publisher? Like you need to include like Picard in some way?
No, that was
part of the Star Trek Picard's book series.
No, that was a mandate from me. I said I'm not going to do a Picard novel without Picard in it, and I'll figure out a way to make it work. Even as it is, we have random people coming up to the booth at the conventions saying that doesn't look like Jean-Luc Picard, and we have to explain to them, no, there are other characters in the TV show.
Oh, but they may not have seen the TV show.
Exactly.
I guess.
Exactly. Well, then they need to.
Yeah. I wondered, like, was there any like restrictions or anything to do with the character, including the character of Rafi?
Rafi was suggested by Kirsten. We again knew that she would be spending her time at home on Earth. We knew that she would not be able to be physically active in the story. But again, it occurred to me that she could pop in at various points to check in on him, and he could check in on her, and also. Yeah, I had been told, it's okay to have her help him obtain the ship.
Cool. We've got comments coming in about like appreciation of the character Rios in the book.
He's unlike any character I've written before, and his expressions that he uses in the book. I told the audiobook reader that basically either they range from disinterest to disgust because he's just not happy with anything, but he also doesn't really rise to a lot of the bait a lot of the time, so he'll just sort of mumble or grumble a lot. His Chilean heritage does get mentioned several times in the book. And we end up getting a fun thing having to do with something that I had learned about the War of the Pacific that comes up in the book, and again, these are things where there are a couple of cases where some slang that is used in the book, actually by the hologram it's not the Spanish word, but it's the Chilean Spanish word, it's an expression used in Chile, and at least that's what we thought when we were researching it. So, but I had a Spanish speaking proofreader at Simon & Schuster who went over everything, and just the same way that when we did Prey, we had a Klingon reader go over all the Klingon stuff that we did. So not that the two languages are at all on the same level of complexity or difficulty or nuance, but it always, whenever you're doing anything which is outside your field of knowledge, whether you're talking about how an automobile works or the physics of space travel, or a language on Earth, or a manufactured language like Klingon or Elvish or something like that, it always helps to go to people who know what they're talking about.
Sort of, and regarding that, I wondered, did the actor who played and who plays Rios on the show have any input into the writing, and
No.
whether you had any whether you had any input on like the audiobook?
No, the actors generally don't have much connection with the audiobooks themselves or the books. There are cases where there are actors that do attend the conventions and things. So, for example, you got Anson Mount, who is Captain Pike. He's actually, we actually talked. He's got a copy of the Enterprise War book, and he's helped promote it, which has been wonderful. But again, where all these actors are, physically and where they're on social media, some of them are don't go to conventions. Some of them don't do all of that. But no, for the audiobook, I certainly did. I always give a list of pronunciations for words that I have invented. Or that I have, if there's a character that has also appeared in the TV show, I'll say here's the episode they appeared in, and then for the original characters, I will, as noted with Rios, or with them, I'll give them some guidance as to what this person should kind of sound like.
Cool. That certainly answers my question because I was really interested. But, so regarding die standing,
yes,
I understand the a reference to San repeated references to San that Jordan makes since the third season of Discovery came from that book or vice versa.
There is a character, San, who is in Emperor Georgiou's personal history from the Mirror Universe. That episode had not aired yet, but I was aware of that character. So I asked permission to insert that character into a sequence, actually a dream sequence that was in Die Standing. And that was delightful because it allowed me to be out ahead of the TV show on something. A case like that Rebels novel, A New Dawn, we were way out ahead. I mean, the entire TV series had not started yet, and so we came out a month before, and so we were tying into things left and right that people were going to see. This is a different case in the Picard sense because season 1 had already wrapped by the time I'm writing, and then. Nothing that I'm doing in the novel is set after season 1, so there's not really any opportunity to drop anything like that in there.
Yeah. Are you working on any projects you'd like to promote?
I have a couple of projects I'd love to promote, but I'm not allowed to talk about them yet, or there's nothing really to promote yet. It's vaporware until it's all finished. I do have a number of books that are out, however, in addition to the Picard book. I have a very large book, as I mentioned, the Omnibus for the Knights of the Old Republic series from Marvel. 1,344 pages. I wrote every page.
Wow.
It's every story I wrote for Knights of the Old Republic. It was actually the #1 graphic novel in comic shops in North America and Europe in the month of July, which is just delightful because it's such a huge book. But again, that is just out. They have also just put out from Marvel a reprinting of my Lost Tribe of the Sith comics. That is in a book called Star Wars Epic Collection Volume 4, The Old Republic. Then there are reprints of my short stories that I did for Star Wars in 2 volumes that have come out from one came out about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, from Titan Publishing. And I think it's called Star Wars Fiction Collection. And then the second one is coming out, I think, later this month. I have the lead story in there. These are stories from Star Wars Insider magazine, which published by Titan in the UK and released here over the many years. So I have stories on both of those, and there's just various other random things being reprinted or printed all the time, and I am looking forward to all of them, and looking forward to being able to talk about the books that I have that are coming out when they come out, and the place where people can find out about that is my website, farawaypress.com, where I have behind the scenes notes on most of my work, not the newer novels yet, but almost all the comics and older novels I've done. Also on Twitter, they can find me at JJMFaraway. And then on Facebook, I am at John Jackson Miller. Same for Instagram.
Cool. Thanks very much for coming on the show, John. Thanks
really appreciate
to your viewers for viewing, watching the interview. Even if you're watching after we've been live, we certainly appreciate all the views and the comments and everything. Please remember to like and subscribe to the video. We'll see you next time on the Scotch Tracker. Track you later.